Hello and welcome again to another interview at the Super Success Lifestyle. Today we are going to be interviewing an amazing coach from England. She has been having a bit of trouble, I believe, coming with us today, but give me 1 second to see if we can get this fixed. So today we are going to have with us Taz Thornton. I think I pronounced it correctly. I'm not really sure. I hope Taz can jump with us any second now. In the meantime, I will just let you know what she does and what she's all about. Yeah, she is just about to jump with us. Okay. And because this is really funny, let me read some comments of her students. Founder of Geeky Group says that Taz is like Tony Robbins with pink hair. I think she managed to make this work. Hello, Taz.
Hello.
Hi. Hello. Are you with us? I am really sorry, but as it was 5 past, I had to start with the
No,
recording.
it's all good. Sorry, I had a few tech issues, but I'm here.
I'm really, really glad you have been able to make it with us today. So I was just telling them that, well, someone said about you that you are like Tony Robbins with pink hair.
They did indeed say that, yes.
Would you like to let us know a bit more about what you do, who you are, please?
Yeah, of course. How long we got? 5 weeks, that I should just about do it. So I'm Taz Thornton, as we know. In 2018, I was named the UK's best female coach. In 2019, I was named one of the most inspirational businesswomen in the UK. This year, I've just been named as one of the top 50 global women in marketing to follow. It always makes me smile when people put me into marketing, because in my old life, I was in publishing and PR. But now I work with individuals, and sure, for individuals in business, it's a lot to do with kind of personal brand, getting the right visibility, getting their message out there. But I also work with individuals on everything from spiritual empowerment through to remembering the truth of who we were before society told us who we were supposed to be. So
Love
I
that.
work through one-to-one training, one-to-one coaching. I do group training. I do speaker training. I'm also a motivational speaker. I've spoken all over the world. 2 best-selling books, more on the way, and everything in my life is geared up to to helping others, but using some of the difficult experiences I've been through, and rather than wallowing them, thinking, okay, why did this happen? What did I learn through this? How can I use this experience to help other people? So I guess maybe I hit that metaphorical brick wall so that others don't need to. That's me in a nutshell.
So would you say that for you, success is to be able to help others?
I think that's part of it. I think success is one of those words that has become terribly, terribly skewed. I think
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of people, if you say success, they immediately go to how big's my house, what car am I driving, how many zeros have I got in my bank account. For me, success is essentially being able to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, with the people I choose to do it with. And part of the success is also being joyful, being happy, being absolutely comfortable in our own skin. So part of that joy element for me comes through helping others. It's not helping others that makes me successful. It's part of a package, and actually it's my mindset that makes me successful, because we all know you could go to those far-flung parts of the planet where there are indigenous people who have nothing compared to our kind of material mindset.
Yeah.
And for me, they're some of the most successful people that we'll find, because they know who they are. They're at peace. They are joyful. They get on with things. They still have that community. They take responsibility for all that they do. And I think that's one of the biggest areas we've fallen down on. And I actually think that's one of the learned behaviors, learned mindsets that stops us from reaching success, whatever that means to us.
And what would you say? So, what would you say that it means for you? The happiness and the ability to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, right? Awesome. And to achieve this, let's call it fulfillment and success, okay, that you are able to live right now, have you had to go through setbacks, through failures?
Somebody once said, I think it's a lovely quote, that they've never seen a good coach who hadn't been through hardships. Now, I'm not necessarily saying I subscribe to that view. I've met some excellent coaches and inspirers and mentors from all walks of life. But in terms of my own journey, absolutely, yeah. I can trace this right back to childhood. In fact, I've just been interviewed by somebody else who's doing kind of a video in my life in a nutshell. And so we've just been going through some of those points, and it went through being a very, very sickly child. I spent more time out of school than in school, really, through ill health, through to ending up in a terribly abusive relationship. One of those, my solicitor, when I was trying to get out of that relationship, was close to retirement and said he'd only ever seen one relationship that abusive in his career. So nasty stuff. And I remember when I was in that relationship feeling absolutely stuck. I was struggling with my sexuality as well. I grew up in a very kind of small-minded coal mining community, and anything other than, finding a husband and having 2.4 kids was just perverse. Okay. So I felt like the only gay in the village, as it were. So I was deeply closeted and in an abusive relationship, and I decided that my way out was death. I tried praying for terminal illness. That didn't happen, obviously. I've done a lot of work energetically and with my mindset to undo that now. And so I hatched this master plan, which was that if whoever was listening up there wasn't going to give me something to kill me, and I didn't want to obviously leave a suicide for my family. I was an only child, doted on. Then my way out was to take as many risks as I could to kind of deliberately try to accidentally die. A deliberate accident's a bit of a contradiction in terms there. That culminated in a car accident where I broke my back in 3 places, and I walked around on it for half the day. I crashed my car in the morning on my way into work. Insisted on going into work later that morning. I was a news editor for a newspaper group at the time. My editor took me to the pub at lunchtime because he said a good stiff brandy would do me good after my shock. So I walked to the pub and back, probably a mile and a half each way, so 2 to 3 miles. And it got to the afternoon, and I suddenly thought, oh, my neck's a bit sore, my back hurts. And I was taken to hospital. They did x-rays. Then they put me on a flatbed and packed my head in sandbags. And I lay there for 9 hours with nobody telling me what was going on, except there being lots of kind of flurries of people with white coats looking at x-rays, quite just far enough for me to not be able to hear and tell what was going on. And that's when we discovered I broke my back in 3 places. And in that moment, it sounds like such a cliche, I went from hopeless to hopeful, and I started calling out again in my head, not obviously out loud because I didn't want to end up on a psych ward as well. But to anyone who was listening, okay, so I get it. If you weren't going to kill me, just let me walk, and I will use what I've been through to help other people. I was very lucky. the places where I'd injured my back, I'd actually crushed the vertebra. So it sounds terribly dramatic when you say you've broken your back. But of course, one of the biggest causes of paralysis is when people walk around on a broken back unknowingly and the vertebrae slip, and that damages the spinal cord. So I was very, very lucky. I had a neck brace. I had a sticks. I'd got soft tissue damage. The only thing I'd broken, I had fatally wounded my car, but I'd broken my back. Everything else was soft tissue damage. So I got out of that. Ended up going back to that relationship. And then I found a way out. And when I got out of that, I had to go into hiding. When I left that relationship, there were death threats involved. The police were involved. It was really, really dark days. I met a wonderful woman that I'm still with now. We're married now, been together for 22 years, blissfully happy. Even through lockdown, I consider I'm so lucky to be locked down with the one person I'd happily spend 24/7 with for the rest of my life, no question.
So beautiful.
Yeah, but even then, I wasn't happy. When I got out of that situation, I promptly forgot all of those promises I'd made about using what I'd been through. I went back into that comfort zone so many of us will be aware of. I went back into goal setting, which is how by the age of 30, I ended up as UK director for what at the time was one of the world's biggest multinational publishing companies. I mean, that's a ridiculous age to be at that kind of position. Or back then it was, I had a nice big wage check, bonuses, top line car, heated leather seats, exotic holidays. And yet, although my life looks beautiful on paper, inside I was still dying because I hadn't dealt with any of that stuff. So it got to 2006, and that's when the period I talk about as my 8 weeks of hell happened. My uncle died. My dad died. He'd just come out of hospital. We thought he was on the mend, and he literally came out of hospital and dropped dead that night. A load of family debts came to light that nobody had been aware of, which meant that my financial future as it had been mapped out for me wasn't going to happen. Now, that was on me with that big job. I never chose to save because I'd always remember being told, well, it's all right, when you grow up, kid, you'll have all this. Oh, no, I haven't. So the rug was well and truly pulled out from under me. I'm an only child trying to deal with the death of an uncle and my dad, trying to look after my mum, trying to manage the funeral, trying to do everything. And within that same period, my now wife was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and then made redundant, all in the period of 8 weeks, along with still having this struggle with coming out. I'd absolutely owned my sexuality by then. I was identifying as gay. That's not a problem. It's not a major issue in who I am. It's just part of me. It doesn't define me. But the issue had been the family still living in that place I described where I was growing up. And this whole, well, what happens now? Because I'd been asked to hide who I was. And now I'm in this position where my dad's died. My world is falling to pieces. And I need my wife next to me. So there was kind of a coming out in the midst of it as well to handle. And at the end of that time, when I found myself kind of crying and rocking and trying to hide under my mum's dining room table, I mean, that seems crazy now, but at the time I was literally trying to hide like it was some kind of war bunker or something. It was then that I realized something had to give and it couldn't keep being me. So I started to form a new plan. I'd always been a deeply spiritual person. I'd been the weird kid that was kind of seeing and sensing things that others weren't when I was this high. So I started to do something with that. I spent 10 years working with and learning from shamans and medicine people. I trained in neuro-linguistic programming. I'd got all that top level kind of people management skill set from being in management for so long, everything from, progression planning to conflict management. I ended up training with the same team who trained Tony Robbins, did firewalking and become an extreme empowerment instructor. And by the time I managed to engineer my own redundancy and get out of there, I'd got this new skill set, because what I'd realized that through all of it, I could look back and recognize that where I'd been rattling with antidepressants, I'd very clearly been through a breakdown. But at the time, think about that. I kept working after that. I was going through a breakdown, and for 4 years, I was hiding behind my pinstripes, and my colleagues hadn't noticed, or at least they never said anything. And if they didn't, it's like, for goodness sake, why didn't you say something? I remember going to one of my peers and in a terribly embarrassed fashion, owning up to the doctor had put me on antidepressants and being told, oh, well, they give them out like Smarties nowadays. So I didn't feel that I could be honest or get the support I needed at work either. So the one thing that picked me up at work was this idea that I can feel better if I help other people. So I'd kind of find people in the other departments who were struggling or about to be booted and go to their manager and say, can I just try? And they'd go, it's a lost cause, what do you want to try for? Let me just try. And in every case, I managed to find the thing that fired them up and turn them around again. So again, by the time I left in 2010, I'd managed to engineer my own redundancy, which just gave me enough of a cushion to be able to go out on my own. And I set out into this brave new world. And at first I was working with my wife. We rebranded her, what used to be a copywriting agency, into Turquoise Tiger, which became a full service digital marketing agency and PR agency. She's now moved away from that and gone into content coaching because she got sick of, we call them arseholes, you know, these people who ask you lots of advice but then don't follow it. Arseholes. Yeah. She got sick of arseholes. So, you know, so she went into kind of content coaching, and she now only works with a few who really light her up, that have a similar ethos. She'll do PR with people and organisations if they're on the same, if they're aligned. And the plan was that I'd step aside and go full-time into my coaching, my speaking, my writing, when I had enough clients to do so. And that happened probably about 5 years earlier than we thought it would. And so that's kind of my story. Have there been rough patches? Yes, and I'm eternally grateful for every one of them, because if I hadn't been through any of those, I wouldn't be as effective as I am as a coach. I can genuinely, one of the other hashtags you'll see me using, as well as the Unleash Your Awesome thing, will be flip your negatives. Mm-hmm. I genuinely believe that everything happens precisely as it should at exactly the right time. And if we take full responsibility and ownership of everything in our lives and stop pointing fingers and stop blaming, you know, so many of us seem to have this crazy idea that life is supposed to be fair. Well, when we pop out of our mothers at the beginning, I don't believe there's anybody there with a certificate and a contract saying, welcome to life, it's going to be fair. You know, it isn't. Sometimes, if I can use a minor swear word, sometimes life is shit. But it's our shit. And it's up to us to go, okay, this is mine. This doesn't feel very nice. It feels hideous. I feel like I don't even want to live right now. But this is mine. What can I learn from it? Why has it been sent to me? Or better, why have I attracted this? Why have I manifested this into my life? How can I grow from it? How can I learn from it? And then how can I help others from that experience? Yeah. That's kind of where I am now. Very long answer to a short question, but I hope that hit it for you.
I love it. And if someone wanted to feel, you know, in control of their life, in control, to call it somehow, because as you just said, you know, life is there, it's not fair, it just happens, you just need to handle it in the best way for yourself, right? Without hurting anybody. But to feel successful, to feel like, you know, they are doing what they want, how they want, when they want, how would you recommend people to be able to achieve that? What do you have to do?
Well, I think one of the most important things to remember here is that in the world of coaching and personal development, those of us that are already in that bubble, very often, without thinking, chunk things up to headline statements. You will hear people saying things like, oh, just choose your mood. Just choose to feel better. Just change your state. And it all sounds terribly easy, but frankly, if we're not in that space, the reaction it's most likely to provoke is one with two fingers. You know, it's mostly likely to react somebody telling us to off. So I think everyone in the coaching and personal development sector needs to develop more of a responsibility. You know, one of my medicine teachers, I always remember telling us that we all have the ability to respond appropriately to any given situation. Responsibility. So I think all of us in that sector have a responsibility to stop putting out just glib statements and start showing people how. And one of the reasons we don't show people how is a lot of people in the coaching sector have this old style fear-based mentality that, well, if we show people how to do it, they won't want to hire us and then we won't have a job. I found that's rubbish. In every job I've had, even when it was back in the kind of marketing PR days, I've shown people how to do it themselves. It doesn't stop you from having work. It just enables people to have the tools when they need them, and they're still going to trust you and come back to you. You know, I know how to do my accounts, but I still employ an accountant because it bores me silly. I don't want to do my accounts. It stresses me. I have the tools, but I don't want to. And it's the same. So I think the first thing to remember is that when we start looking at this world of personal development, we're going to see lots of glib statements where if we're not in the best state, it's going to make us just want to turn on our heel and run away. It takes a lot of time and a lot of dedication. I genuinely believe it's possible for everybody to live a better life and to create the future they want to create, whatever shape that is. But the first thing we've got to do is stop blaming everybody else. We've got to stop saying, well, I'm like this because, you know, mum smacked me when I was a kid, or I'm like this because I went through abuse, or I'm like this because of a chemical imbalance, it's not my fault, or I'm like this because of global warming, or Donald Trump, or Brexit. We've got to stop doing that shit and instead take ownership. Now, the trouble with taking 100% of responsibility for everything in our lives is that it means it's our fault. Yeah. So we don't want to do that. But on the flip side, the beauty of that is that until we take responsibility for everything, we can't change it. So think about it. If we're saying that we are naturally, if we're saying that our default is a pessimistic mindset because, I don't know, we had a difficult relationship with our grandparents, for instance, that means if we're like that because of them, and maybe they've been dead for years, we can't ever change it because it was because of them. Whereas if we're able to say, actually, no, I learned from that. The way I am now is a learned behavior and my reactions are on me. This happened. It was hideous. I learned for a long time that if I went into a negative state, maybe I wouldn't feel, maybe they'd steer clear. Or maybe if I stayed in that negative state, mum would come and pick me up and hug me more. Or in later life, if I stay in that state of dis-ease, it gives me an excuse for things. So we have to be willing to stop blaming other people for the stuff in our lives. Now, sometimes when I talk about this, people will go into a style of, well, that's victim blaming. No, it isn't. It's not the same thing. So if I talk about the abuse that I went through in that relationship, was that my fault? Well, in man's world, no, of course it wasn't. But in the bigger picture, if we look at it from a spiritual point of view, if we believe that we call lessons into each lifetime that we need to grow and develop, then yeah, on some level, I called that relationship. On some level, I stayed in that relationship and I stayed until I felt strong enough to grow out. What did that relationship teach me? It taught me to stand on my own 2 feet. It taught me that I was strong enough to fight for the underdog, even if I knew that I would suffer for it later. I'd sometimes stay out beyond my curfew. Yes, I had a curfew. I'd stay out beyond my curfew to support people in need, to support my friends. And I knew that when I got back, it would be bad. But it taught me that I would still fight for the underdog, even at my own expense. So it taught me I had a really steely core. It taught me that no matter how much of myself that I lost, there's still that spark inside somewhere. And we all have that spark. We'll say we've got nothing left. We're wrong. There's that spark inside us somewhere that we can nurture and coax into a flame. How do I know that we still have that? Because if we did not have that, we would be dead. Dead, dead, dead. I am alive. I am physically alive, even if I feel emotionally dead. Therefore, there's a spark inside me somewhere right down in the pit of my stomach, and I can find that and I can nurture it. So first step is responsibility for everything in our lives, to say, of course, I didn't mete these things out onto myself. But they were my situations, and it's up to me to deal with them. And all the time I'm blaming somebody else and not taking any responsibility for it, I can't change it. So first is saying yes to life and finding a way to take absolute responsibility and ownership for everything in your life. Everything. And I'm talking everything from physical dis-ease to emotional dis-ease to relationships to the job to the house that we live in, to our levels of poverty mindset or abundance, wherever we're at. Take responsibility now and you can change your tomorrow. Of course, it won't be immediately tomorrow. It will be years ahead. However far you plan, how quickly it happens for you. But you can't change any of it until you say yes. The next thing we The next thing we Thank you. The next thing we need to do is start recognizing that we need to change our mindset. And there's loads of personal development books out. A couple of really good ones there. There's loads of really good personal development books out there that you can use. But one of the most simple methodologies that I give to so many people, whether they're coaching clients or they come onto my spiritual empowerment programs, whatever they are, the gratitude exercise. Appreciators. Every morning when you wake up, name 5 things that you appreciate. Write them down, name them out loud, but come up with 5 things every day. And it's not difficult. It could be as simple as, I want a cup of coffee. I can just hit this button on my kettle and it boils water for me. How amazing is that? I just hit a button and I can make coffee. You know, it could be the smell of baking bread. It could be that we know grandfather sun is going to rise in the sky tomorrow. Even if it's behind clouds, we know it's clouds. There's a constant there. We know it's always going to rise. The moon's going to come out every night. It could be as simple as, you know, one of these, a smartphone. We spend so much time blaming these and blaming social media, where actually we have the world at our fingertips. We can build a business now that is profitable just with one of these without having massive down payments or going to get business loans. We can build a business with one of these. We are in the most privileged time of life. If you look at the odds of being born human as opposed to any other species in this time, we've won the evolutionary lottery if we just get our mindset right. And if you struggle to come up with 5 things that you are grateful for every day, then go for 10. Because I promise, if you start thinking, right, I've got to go 10, you'll find 5 easily. And if you do that every day, constantly, you will start to work with your mind, and you will literally start to rewire your brain to find the positives. So if we go outside and if we find a big pile of dirt with flowers growing out of it, we can focus on the flower or we can focus on the manure that it's growing out of. It doesn't mean that we're pretending the manure isn't there. It means we're focusing on the flower. So what else can we do to improve our mindset? Stop watching the news. We know that it's biased. We know that a lot of it isn't going to be true. If you really want news, watch social media and get your news that way. But don't follow the biased channels. Look for the facts. So when all the coronavirus was coming out, I stopped reading news. If I wanted to get an update, I went to look at the World Health Organization, you know, and even that's going to be skewed up to a point, but at least it's the cleanest, most factual place that I could go to, rather than listening to what's on the news, the groups on Facebook, the conspiracy theorists, or Dave down the pub. So stop filling your mind full of conspiracy and other people's drama. And the next point is to recognize that the majority of the loosely termed Western world is addicted to drama. We have been conditioned to crave the serotonin and the dopamine hit that comes from drama mindset. And if we don't believe that, just look at Facebook. You know, those statuses will have, oh, I wish this person would, some people would just learn to behave like this instead of those phishing statements, or, oh, I'm having such a bad day today. And they get all the people saying, oh no, what's the matter, hon? Inbox me, hon. Oh, I feel sick. How terrible for you. And then that person gets the drama hit. But then a few days later, that dopamine is dipped and they need another drama hit. So they've got to do something more extreme. And all the time we keep playing into that, we're pushing people into an extreme where, you know, what are they going to do to get the ultimate drama hit when they've exhausted everything? So we need to be aware of how much we're playing into drama. We need to be aware of our own responses. We need to get crystal clear on our intentions over things. And that's part of the drama thing as well. How often, when you're listening or watching to this back, can you honestly say you've never made a statement or put something online or said something to somebody else because you are trying to engineer a reaction? Maybe you want somebody else to feel bad. Maybe you want somebody else to feel guilty. Maybe it's, right, I'm going to do this and then they'll see how bad they've made me feel. Well, newsflash, people can't make you feel like anything. It's your reaction that causes that feeling. You know, you might get you might get an initial emotion, but the feeling you choose to create from that emotion is up to you, which is where we need to be careful and don't just chunk up to that choose your mood. So we need to be really, really clear on our intentions. We need to start getting into gratitude. Gratitude is at the center of everything. If we get to the point where we can have gratitude for everything in our lives, even the bits that we've perceived to be negative. If we take ownership, we create more gratitude, we're a bit more aware of our intentions. That's a good start. But the next point to really hit it is to work out some kind of, I don't like the word goal, because when I say goal setting, it puts me back into corporate days where they tell us to write our goals and we say stupid things like, I'm going to spend time in every department and learn how the organisation works, or I'm going to join a gym and lose weight. All of that stuff that we write when we're told we should write goals, and we write all the crap we think we should say, but none of it is actually coming from here. It's all from here. And then we leave that job, empty our desk, and then say, oh, those goals that somebody told us to write, screw that up, throw it away. So I'm a much bigger fan now of saying intentions. For me, an intention is a goal with soul. So find something that fills you up. Find something, some mission that you have that you can create that is bigger than you. Because if you can create a mission that's bigger than you, that will get you out of bed on the days where you're feeling sorry for yourself. And if you're having a day where you're really exhausted, fine, give yourself a duvet day, but decide, I'm having this day, and while I'm having this duvet day, I'm going to plan what I'm going to do tomorrow, and then tomorrow I'm out of bed, you know? So a mission that's bigger than you, which takes me back to that whole point where I'm using as well as all my training, I'm using the situations I have lived through to inspire others, to motivate others, to help others who might be going through similar or who are in danger of going through similar. And that doesn't matter whether I'm talking about business coaching, you know, I've been at the top of businesses, I've run my own, or whether we're talking about personal empowerment training, where you can bet I've got a lot of tools for that. But that mission has got to be something bigger than us. And if we can turn that mission into something tangible. So one of the images I have for my future mission is I do a lot of motivational and public speaking now. Not so much during Corona, although a lot of it's gone online. But one of mine has been on my own stage at my own event, you know, with all the TV screens up and there's thousands and thousands in the auditorium. And maybe I'm on Oprah's Super Soul Sunday and all of that stuff. And that's one of the images that I hold for my future vision. Not for ego at all, but I'm actually naturally introverted. I've had to train myself to appear more extrovert, have the confidence to get out there because of this mission. And the bigger stage I can create for me, the more people I can help and impact at the same time.
Yeah.
So the reason I put that into little videos that I play, or into a solid image that I can fish out, is because now I can go, is this thing going to get me closer to that? Yes. No. Is this a red herring? And if I can hold a clear image of the intention that I want to create going forwards, that situation, that end goal, then I can reverse engineer everything from there. So it's a bit like having a sat nav. If you haven't put a destination in your sat nav, it doesn't matter where you end up. But if you put a destination in your sat nav and you have a clear idea of where you want to end up, you can map out that journey. So if I know that I want to end up on that stage with all the screens, with being able to impact thousands, if not more, at the same time, whether that's through TV, through whatever, I can go, right, what do I need to do in order to get there? Which is how I know I'm on track now. So, you know, I've done some TV work, I've done radio work, I'm in newspapers and magazines and in the media fairly frequently. I've got a good following on social media. I've written a couple of books, there's more on the way. It's all to get to the point of fulfilling my potential so I can fulfill my mission. And ego is a really interesting point. In all those years I spent learning from the shamans and medicine people, they genuinely see ego as a separate being, and it's kill or be killed. So I think that's another thing that holds us back. So many of us are afraid of being judged as being in ego, which we need to be clear. If I'm speaking, I'm very confident, because of the deep connections I feel with energy, with spirit. I trust that they'll keep me right. Sometimes words will come into me, I have no idea where they come from, and I'll just spew them out because I trust. So of course in that situation, I'm going to be confident. There's a difference between confidence and arrogance. There's a difference between confidence and ego, and I think that trips us up. In the same way, all those old sayings like pride comes before a fall, self-praise is no praise, it's rubbish. We should be proud of our achievements. We can be proud of our achievements without being in arrogance. And if we can keep
Definitely.
that, if we can keep that balance, the beauty is there. So all of those things, ownership, gratitude, having a mission bigger than you, being clear on your end goal, and then reverse engineering from there, that's what will do it. But again, it takes time, it takes dedication, and it takes, well, if we create that mission, it gets easier because then we've got something bigger to believe in. But it takes time. You can't just read some of those, those quote memes.
Yeah, you don't wake up and you're like, oh my God, I made it. I'm a millionaire or whatever.
Overnight success very rarely happens overnight.
Yeah, I've got the partner of my dreams. My relationship's perfect. I didn't put any work on it right away, and I've got a fuck ton of money, and I can do whatever I want with my time.
Yeah, gotta make it happen.
Yeah. It takes a whole journey to get there.
It does. But that isn't that key as well, enjoying the journey instead of, yes, have that picture of where you want to end up, but don't put so much on that you're living for that and not enjoying the now. It's like people who live for the weekend. Well, you're wasting 5 days every week.
I mean, what happens when you get there? I mean, you want something else. I mean, it's going to be 1 second of your life. Yeah, I did it.
Yeah. Well, it's like the old idea, isn't it? The old working cycle that we've all been conditioned towards at all. So you work until you're 70, save lots of money. So you don't enjoy your life because you've saved all your money. And then by the time you leave your job, if you're lucky, you'll have 20 years to use that pot of money before you start weeing down your knees and end up in an old people's home. That's not living. It isn't. And neither is having a nice, expensive, lush car if the only time you're spending it is going to and from the office that you detest.
Yeah, exactly. Or if you
house and you can't look at my big house. Yeah, but you're never spending any time with it with your family because you're always in the office. It's not living.
No, definitely. I think we need to redefine success. We
do. And it's going to be different for all of us as well. That's so important.
Definitely.
If you're one of those people where money really does drive you and that makes you happy, then go for it. But I've never met someone where money actually makes them happy. It's usually the way they perceive they will feel when they don't need to worry and when they can buy anything they want. And then I know lots of people who've got to that point and suddenly they're bored because their life purpose is gone.
That's the thing. I was going to say, I think money matters. Of course, money matters. It's just, it's not the only thing that matters.
Precisely. There's nothing wrong with wanting to build, nothing wrong at all. But you've got to make sure that you're filling your soul as well as your pocket.
Exactly. So, and it's definitely not the only thing, not the first thing. I mean, why do you want a lot of money to be solo alone in your humongous house, bored, or not having somebody to love or to be loved by? Nah.
Coins aren't very comfortable to sleep with.
Definitely, exactly. Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you, actually, almost from the beginning of this interview, but obviously I knew I had time to ask, for you to show me those books.
Oh, these ones?
I'm very intrigued about them. So could you talk to us a tiny bit about them? And then if you have any offer that you would like to do to the, I think we are 200 people on the group. It's not huge, but
hey, that's a nice number. Size isn't always important.
But I am also very curious about the books, so I would like to ask about them first, if you don't mind.
Okay. My first one was this one, Whispers from the Earth, which this is much more on the kind of shamanic bent. Yeah, lots of indigenous cultures have teaching stories. And in the old ways, they could convey a message very powerfully by getting everybody together in the entire tribe, and they could tell a story to the whole tribe. And the teachings that people needed would hit them. They'd call it shooting people with a story. And here in where I am in the UK, we would have had these too, but of course, a lot of our indigenous spirituality was wiped out with the coming of the church and just through history and the way things changed. And I sat and wondered, well, what would our stories have been? What would our teaching tales have been? And so I sat with my guides, with my spirits in the shamanic work that I do, and asked, and I started literally being gifted these fully fledged stories. Sometimes they'd come through dreams, sometimes they'd come through meditation, sometimes they'd literally be like a movie playing out in front of me. And I started writing them down. And at first I wasn't going to do anything with them. I was just jotting them down. And then one day I was sitting, when was this one published? Let's just look at the year. This was in 2015. This was first published in 2016, so a while back. But I remember sitting at my computer one day and I was doing something, probably something like accounts. And this voice kept dropping into my head. I'm going to get very woo-woo now. So if woo isn't your thing, I don't apologise. Just sit with it. This voice started dropping into my head that I recognised as one of my guides. And I thought, I'm imagining it. This is my brain trying to get me out of the dull accounting or whatever I was doing, spreadsheets or some rubbish. And it kept coming back. And it was saying, those stories that you've written down, send them to a publisher. And eventually I got so annoyed with it when it wouldn't, you know, when you keep trying to get a thought out of your head and it keeps popping back in, that. Eventually I down to like, right, if this is real, which publisher? And straight away I got this Moon Books. And I went, don't be ridiculous. There's no such publisher as Moon Books. I've never heard of them. Google, oh, there is a Moon Books. Okay. So I'd probably got, I don't know, 3 or 4 of the stories on a Word document. I pasted them in and fired them an email. And within the hour, they'd come back and said, we're really interested, can you submit a full proposal? And so I did that. And then within a week or so, they'd come back and said, we really like it. We'd like to bring you on as a fully fledged author. Here's your deal. Here's what we'll pay you. Here's how it will work. Can you hit this deadline? And of course, I didn't hit the deadline, but, but that's Whispers from the Earth. So it's an anthology of these teaching stories as I perceive them, and it's up to the reader whether if you genuinely want to believe these are channeled from spirit, that's fine. If you want to believe that it's just come from my imagination, that's fine too. There's a chapter telling you how to meditate, how to go and seek your own stories, and there are a few stories as well from some of my students, because I wanted to check, is this just me? Right, see if you can do this, see if this happens. And they started getting the stories back too. So stories from me, stories from my students. I like to believe they all come from spirit, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you believe they're from spirit or whether you believe they're just lovely teaching stories. It's been described by some as being a bit like Rudyard Kipling. Some say it's a bit like Aesop's Fables. That's that one.
Nice.
And then Unleash Your Awesome. This one came out in, it's terrible, I can't remember when they first came out. 2017. And this one is the one that's far more of a personal development book. It's far more of a coaching book. Why did I write it? Well, firstly, because I was being poked and kicked and told to by those unseen forces again. But partly because, again, part of my mission is being able to help and inspire as many as I could. And I know I can't possibly see everybody that I want to face to face. So I see an awful lot of personal development books out there that pretty much say the same thing. I reckon 90% of personal development books say exactly the same stuff written in a different way. And I wanted to do something different. All those personal development books, they sit on your shelf and you never read them. So I wanted to not create another shelf development book. I wanted a proper self-development book. Self-development, not shelf development. And so it's partly autobiographical. I refer back to some of the issues I've been through, how I did it, how I got through it. And at the end of most of the chapters, there's a challenge, there's a task to help you to shift your mindset. So even now, if I get somebody coming to me, and maybe they're saying things like, either they want help from me quickly and I can't get them in for a few months because I book a long way in advance, or they're coming to me and they want some support, but they don't currently perceive they have the available cash to do it, I'll steer them towards that and say, go and do that, do all the exercises, and then come back to me, and then we'll see where we go from here. This covers everything from self-belief, playing full out, believing you can be awesome, the difference between goals and intentions. Talks a little bit about the medicine wheel. It talks about poverty mindset, how to get past some of your cash blocks, how to manifest what you want in your life, including relationships, turning hurt into hope, all that flip your negative stuff. So that's that one. And in fact, just in lockdown, bearing in mind that's copyrighted 2017, which means it was probably published 2018. I lose track of the years. But even now, this one is, all those years after publication, still in the top 50 bestsellers in its Amazon category. This one, during lockdown, sold out everywhere. We broke Amazon. They sold out, and then they stopped taking orders because they got too much of a backlog, and then they started steering people to third parties. Waterstones sold out as well. And demand went so big that one in lockdown crept back up to the bestsellers list. It was just hovering above Jack Canfield and Brendan Burchard a few weeks back. So,
That's great. That's
happy with it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's amazing. I am actually quite curious about both. For one side, because I'm a bit woo-woo myself too, and because the You're Awesome book seems pretty interesting.
Have a read and let me know how you get on.
Is there anything that you would like to tell or offer to the Super Success Lifestyle group? Please.
There's loads of different things. I tend not to do special offers as such, simply because I've tried to price myself so that it's fair anyway. But there are a few things going on at the moment that people might be interested in. So if there's anybody there who more on the visibility, personal brand business side, who needs to really smash LinkedIn, I've just run a kind of a training, part coaching, part mastermind 2-hour event. It was via Zoom, and then we did a bolt on 30 minutes, so 2.5 hours. And then I've bolted onto the back end of that a Facebook group where you can get access to me for another 3 months on top of that if you need it. And I had so many people coming to me afterwards saying, can I get the replay? Can I get the replay? That for the next 2 weeks, you can get hold of that for the 2.5 hours of training, plus the closed group with direct access to me, plus links to all of the different apps to the marketing materials I use and the groups I use to enable me to get thousands of views every day on LinkedIn. You can get that all in for a one-off cost of £45. So you can get that. You'll find the link to that through my Facebook page, or if you're on LinkedIn, you'll find it there too. What else have I got? For coaches, healers and therapists, there's an online group I run with my wife, Asha, called Unleashed, which is regular content ideas. Again, how to show up, how to make sure that you're charging the right amount, how to make sure that you're serving well and getting rewarded well for that. And that's a monthly ongoing group. That's £25 a month, minimum of 1 year sign up. And then for people who just want some good kind of life direction and want to feel better about themselves, things like the gratitudes we talked about earlier, there's a group I run called Life Force, which again is ongoing, and it covers mindset, it covers some of the spiritual work, it covers some of the shamanic work, there are weekly tasks to stretch your comfort zone and help you to grow and have some real personal realizations. And there are also daily tasks that we all do, one of which is appreciators. And same with that. That's a minimum sign up of 12 months, but it's only £19 a month. And again, access to me all the time. Outside of that, there's loads of stuff. There are some events that I'm going to be speaking at soon that are ridiculously low priced that you can get some good full day seminars from, which will be on my website. And there's lots of different coaching packages you can get. There's one special offer that I created during lockdown. Actually, there's a couple. Ordinarily, 6 times a year, I open up 6 budget coaching packages, which gets you 45 minutes with me, 1-to-1, minimum of 4, maximum of 8 sessions. I only do 6 a year, but I opened that wide up for lockdown. So if you want to grab that, you can. I'm now way over the 6. I'm going to have to cap that down again soon, but if you want to get in there quickly. And I also recognised that there was nothing between that subsidised coaching package and my monthly that started off at $295. So just for lockdown, I created a package called 2020 Vision, which again can help you with getting to where you want to be, working out what that end goal is, how you reverse engineer from there. And that can be anything from mindset through to your business. And you can that's a minimum of 6 months, and that gets you a 40-minute session for $135, which is non-subsidized. The budget one is subsidized for startups, people who are genuinely in cash flow issues. 2020 Vision is not subsidized, but it's a stepping stone between those two. So if you're not in a position where you think I need to subsidize my coaching, but you are in a position where you think I'm not quite ready to go $295 and up, but I would like something regular, then that's on for the rest of this year too.
Okay, makes sense. Awesome. thank you very much
Thank you.
for your time. And I really hope that we can have you around very soon. Thank you.
You know where I am. You can always find me on my website, find me on social. If anybody's watching this and wants to ask me anything, ping me a message. I might